Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and so far on this channel, we have covered both the spec of Subtlety and Outlaw when it comes to raids and dungeons for the patch 10.1, but it looks like the spec of Assassination has been making gains as of recently. Through research, testing, and theory crafting, Assassination has been able to iron out a couple of builds which offers a competitive footing, especially against single targets like raid bosses. With the newest raid of Aberrus focusing mostly on single target encounters, Assassination Rogue has a real chance to shine against the competition. In today's video, I wanted to go over how to get your assassins ready for raids and dungeons in the patch 10.1 by going over the rotation, playstyle, talents, and gearing to make sure you got everything you need during Dragonflight Season 2. But right before we get into this guide video, most of you guys watching these are still not subscribed. However, the more of you remind, the more of you do, so let's keep it going. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell if you're watching these videos anyway, especially if you want to get more regular content regarding all of the newest Dragonflight updates and changes going forward. First, I like to start these guide videos off by going over the talent builds first, starting with the Assassination setup for raid single target. The current raid build takes advantage of additional nature damage provided from our newest tier set bonus by going into the double poisons from the Dragon Tempered Blades. We also use the talent of Sepsis, which was recently explored and found to greatly amplify our single target performance. The current raid build makes use of Exsanguinate, which the rogue community has a love-hate relationship with. If Exsanguinate is a no-go for you, then I suggest trying an alternative raid viable version instead. For Mythic Plus dungeons, most rogues prefer to play Subtlety over Assassination, but if you much rather prefer bleeds and deadly poisons, then the current build leans heavily into cleaving targets with Indiscriminate Carnage, and bleeds multiple foes with Crimson Tempest. Just like raids, the current dungeon build, however, makes use of Exsanguinate, though if you prefer to avoid that type of gameplay, Fatal Concoction and Flying Daggers offers acceptable AoE and single target alternatives. Now that we get the talents out of the way, let's go over how we can optimize gearing our assassin in the patch 10.1. If you're serious about maximizing your rogue, then I highly suggest using raid bot sims to help you better optimize your gear. Simcraft has an add-on which can snag all of your character's items. This means your current equipment as well as anything left sitting in your bags. Raid bots can help you compare all available items and find out which pieces may be your biggest upgrade. You can even compare and find out which items are worth upgrading using crests and flight stones, and even simulate different scenarios to find out just how much damage you should be doing against bosses, dungeon encounters, and even when simply hitting a training dummy. Although if you're looking for simple gearing advice, then this is how you can get started. Assassination Rogue's best stat will always be agility. In most cases, if an item has more agility, then it's usually an upgrade, as long as its secondary stats aren't your lowest options. Assassin's secondary stat priority places Critical Strike at the very top, closely followed by Mastery, then Haste, though Haste is only decent in single target encounters, with Versatility basically dead last. When looking to acquire gear through raiding, your best weapon will come from the final boss of Aberrus, though the heart-piercing Stalactite from the Dungeon of Underrot serves as a suitable alternative. Currently, your best trinkets will come from the newest raid. Be on a lookout for the Bomb Dispenser from the boss Zakharn, and the Beacon to the Beyond from the final boss of Aberrus. When gearing through dungeons, your best options will be the Loaded Dice from the Dungeon of Freehold, and the Fragment Trinket from the Halls of Infusion. You should also be on the lookout to get your tier set as soon as possible. Assassin's Season 2 tier set is mostly passive, with the 2 set and the 4 set offering additional nature damage bonuses, which won't impact your base rotation, but they do offer quite a bit of additional power. Slaying raid bosses is a viable method of tier set acquisition, but filling out your great vault through raids, dungeons, and even PvP can offer even more chances at tier set items. And in a few weeks, we'll be able to use Catalyst to convert normal Season 2 gear from raids and dungeons into a tier set versions on a weekly basis. Next, I'm gonna go over the playstyle and the rotation of Assassination Rogue. Unlike the other rogue specs, Assassination is known for its damage over time gameplay, focusing on bleeds and poisons, while inflicting massive damage to any target that they mark for death. Assassination does not have a strict rotation, rather it's a priority system of builders and spenders, which uses energy and combo points as its primary resources. First, let's go over your basic combat builders. Mutilate will be your primary combo point builder in single target situations. Mutilate strikes with both of your daggers from left and right, and each of those strikes can generate one additional combo point if it crits, generating anywhere between 1 and 4 combo points per strike. When using the talent of Blindside, your Mutilate strikes have a chance to empower your next ambush, making it usable without stealth and free of energy. Ambush always takes higher priority over Mutilate in those cases, with the ability generating 2 combo points. Garrote will be one of your bleeds, which generates 1 combo point. We maintain Garrote on our primary target as much as possible, only refreshing it if it's about to fall off. Feel free to spread Garrotes to other nearby foes when facing more than one target. Phantom Knives is our primary combo point builder when faced against 3 or more targets. Phantom Knives generates 1 combo point, but it can generate additional points if it lands a crit against any target that it strikes. Echoing Reprimand generates 2 combo points and empowers your combo point bar, but turning some of those points into a blue bar. Points marked blue are empowered, meaning that spending finishers with that exact amount of points will amplify the finisher's effect. In most cases, we do not adjust our rotation around those empowered points, but if you do happen to land on them, then feel free to spend your finishers to empower them, and try to keep Echo and Reprimand on cooldown as often as possible. You should continue to generate combo points until you have at least 6. Afterwards, you should spend them on any of your spender abilities. First of which we have Rupture, our second primary damage over time effect. Rupture should be maintained on as many targets as possible, and try to maintain Rupture and Garrote at all times, as both of these blades help you recover much needed energy during combat. Next we have Slice and Dice, which empowers your dagger strikes and auto attacks. Maintaining Slice and Dice is rather easy, as the finisher of Envenom helps refresh its full duration. When neither bleeds nor slice need to be maintained, you can sink the rest of your combo points into Envenoms, which empowers your poison drenched blades. Next we have the talent of Crimson Tempest, which carves all nearby targets, causing them to bleed. Try to maintain the bleed of Tempest when fighting against 2 or more targets. This rotation changes slightly when it comes to dungeon encounters. When facing against 5 targets or less, maintain bleed of Garrote, Rupture, and Crimson Tempest against as many targets as possible. Once all bleeds are active, feel free to spend the rest of your combo points into Envenoms until the bleeds need to be refreshed. When facing against 6 or more enemies, you will still maintain bleed of Garrote, Rupture, and Crimson against as many targets as possible, but replace Envenom with Crimson Tempest as your filler spender ability. Next, let's go over the Assassination Rogue cooldowns and how to use them properly to amplify our damage. First, we have the big one, Deathmark. During Deathmark, all of your bleeds and poisons are duplicated, creating a massive burst window against one lone target. Try to use Deathmark on cooldown as often as possible. In dungeons, Deathmark should also be used on cooldown, not just against bosses but also against dungeon packs as well. Try to pick your priority targets carefully. The best priority targets are either those which pose the most amount of danger to your group and need to be eliminated quickly, or the toughest foes which have the most amount of health in the dungeon pack. The ability of Shiv should also be used on cooldown. Shiv pierces past your enemy's defenses, causing them to suffer additional nature damage, and try to use Shiv against any priority targets. Vanish will temporarily grant us stealth and give us the chance to empower our Garrotes, which gains additional value when used from stealth. In most cases, we save Vanish and use it with Deathmarks to amplify the double bleed windows. Sepsis is a potent poison which generates 1 combo point. Sepsis also allows us to use 2 abilities and treat them as if they were enhanced by stealth, once right after using Sepsis and once more right after Sepsis expires. Usually we will try to use Sepsis to empower our Garrotes against any enemy targets, and try to keep Sepsis on cooldown as often as possible. Subtlety is a potent drink which regenerates our energy and provides us with additional mastery for a short moment. In most cases we will use Subtlety for its resource recovery anytime we find ourselves low on energy. The talent of Exsanguinate causes bleeds against our current target to expire at a rapid pace, which allows them to become more bursty. Exsanguinate is a long 3-minute cooldown, which we will use very selectively. The only time you should use Exsanguinate is right before casting Deathmark against a freshly bled up target, or after empowering your ruptures with the Echoing Reprimand. Next we have Indiscriminate Carnage, which allows your next Garrote and Rupture to cleave onto nearby targets. In dungeons we usually use this ability from stealth and try to use it as often as possible. Next, let's go over how to open up on your target as an Assassination Rogue. For Assassins, openers are very important. They help you establish all of your major abilities in a specific way, which allows them to gain maximum value if used on cooldown afterwards, and allows you to strike at your target from stealth with maximum potential. First, let's go over the single target raid opener using Sepsis and Exsanguinate. Before your opener, make sure to refresh your weapon poisons, making sure that Deadly Poison, Amplification Poison, Crippling, and Atrophic Poison are all present. We're going to start off with a Garrote into a Slice and Dice, then Garrote into a Rupture, Echo and Reprimand into Rupture once again to help extend on its full duration, followed by Sepsis, Shiv and Thistletea, Garrote yet again, and then Exsanguinate. Then Deathmark, and then use any of your unused offensive trinkets. From there, we proceed with our rotational priority, building combo points, refreshing bleeds, and using abilities on cooldown until the very next Deathmark, where we will vanish and Garrote to help set up another big bleed window. Next, we have an opener without using Exsanguinate. We start with Garrote into Slice and Dice, Mutilate up until 5 combo points, and then Rupture, followed by Sepsis, Deathmark, and any unused trinkets, then Shiv with Thistletea into Echo and Reprimand and Envenom. Then we go on into our rotational priority, while trying to sneak in an empowered Garrote right before Sepsis falls off. Next we have our Mythic Plus dungeon opener. Before combat we will apply Carnage if it's available from stealth. Open your target with a Garrote into a Slice and Dice, then Echo and Reprimand into a Rupture, followed by Exsanguinate if talented into. Then Deathmark your primary target. Build combo points with Phantom Knives when fighting against 3 targets, and then use Crimson Tempest as a finisher. Shiv your priority target, then use Thistletea. Then Envenom your priority target. And then we proceed with our combat rotation. If the dungeon pack you're currently fighting is still alive as the Garrote is about to expire, then you could vanish and then Garrote as many targets as possible to refresh all of your available bleeds. Next, I want to go over some of the items worth crafting using the Dragonflight's work order system. Assassination rogues tend to scale better off of weapons, so crafting a high item level dagger with your best secondary stats will always be a viable option. Next, we have the embellishment item of the Slimy Expulsion Boots, which offers quite a bit of single target damage, but it will require you to craft another item with the Toxified Armor Patch embellishment to make it worth your while. It is recommended to craft your armor patch item on a bracer or a belt slot in order to gain maximum value. Lastly, we have the Enchants and Consumables to go over. I will list the recommended consumables from the must-haves first, which will generally offer the most amount of value for the least amount of gold. For your file, we'll use the Tepid Versatility. For runes on your weapons, we'll run the Buzzing Rune on each one of your daggers. For food, we'll want to use either a Fortune Cookie, a Raid Feast, or a 1000 Bone Tongue Sizer. If you have the extra gold, you could spend it on Elemental Potions of Power if possible, and try to use it inside of your major cooldowns. Finally, we have Augment Runes, which is the most expensive item in this category. Only use these and purchase these if you're certain that you won't die during the combat encounter, otherwise the runes are wasted. If your character's items have any gem slots in them, then those gem slots should be filled with the Sensei's Alexstrasite. At least one of those gem slots should also contain an inscribed limited diamond, if you can get a crafter to make you one using the work order system. And finally we have our enchantments. Both of your weapons should be enchanted with Sophic Devotion, so purchase the version which you can afford. Chests should be enchanted with Waking Stats. Legs should have the Fierce Armor Kit on them. Rings should be enchanted with Critical Strike. Bracers and Cloak are best enchanted with Avoidance for defense, and boots can be enchanted with the Plains Runner's Breeze for added movement. Finally, your belt can be enchanted with a shadowed clasp, but only if you can afford it. As per usual, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, in the description of every single video and live stream, we have a link to our Discord community channel. Probably the best place to reach out to me directly in case you want to let me know what you thought about this video or hang out with the rest of the community to discuss some of the upcoming changes. Join our Discord to become part of the community. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.